Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to be doing an analysis of Top Gun Maverick. Now, my hope is that you've already seen this movie, right? That you've had a chance to watch it at least once, and maybe multiple times, because I think this is one of those movies that is absolutely worth watching multiple times. Even after you know everything that's going to happen in it, it is still exciting. It is still engaging. It is still grips you. And I think there's just a lot of reasons that come down to great writing and great acting. And great directing actually too. But for today, I just want to say this. If you haven't had a chance to see it, yes, of course, I'm going to give some spoilers here. But please know it'll be valuable even when you watch it. And then I recommend you watch it a couple more times just to see how this stuff all plays out. Here's what we're going to do today. First, we're going to be talking about delivering on the action conventions, because if you're writing action stories, they better deliver on those conventions. Your audiences expect it. Studios expect it, streamers expect it, directors expect it. Everybody you're going to work with is going to expect those action conventions to be delivered on powerfully. Then we're going to talk about how to set up your action scenes so that they're really interesting. And actually what I'll be talking about is what are the things inside those action scenes that you're going to build into them. Then we'll talk about how to mix drama with action to give it more meaning. Now, one of the things as an action writer that you absolutely do not want is meaningless action. And I see that sometimes. Usually it's because I'm watching, an old movie or an indie movie where the director was the writer or something like that. But listen, if you're writing action and you're expecting them to spend the money they're going to spend on it, I'd say you want to keep your audiences engaged and you want to have people absolutely love your action. The more meaning you give it, the better. And then finally, we'll talk about the class Writing Killer Action Scripts. For those of you who really want to become great at this or really want a chance at being able to succeed both in contest or in selling your script. It makes a difference. There is a huge difference between watching an action story versus writing one that has the same level of power. So you'll find out that when we get there. So Top Gun Maverick. Let's give some credit where credit's due. First thing to know, this movie was $170 million. That's a pretty high budget movie. But it made back 1.3 billion. And that means that anybody who was involved in the movie is happy, right? It was done by a studio, so that's where the funding came from. Of course, they're happy about it. But all the stars are happy. Anybody who had a piece of the back end is happy, all of that kind of thing. Now, having said that, please know this. If you're trying to pick genres and really you're just making a financial decision, action may be one of the best there is. It has more billion-dollar movies than any other genre. So just a tip there. This one was written by, Aaron Kruger, Eric Warner Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie. I believe Christopher McQuarrie was also the director on the project. This guy has done a lot of stuff. He's an amazing director, and I'd say his writing chops are very, very advanced. From an emotional engagement perspective, and this is kind of what we're talking about today, there's a huge difference between action that has no meaning or emotional engagement versus action that grips you, that has you sitting on the edge of your seat, that has you worried every moment, right? So a very important part of the action genre is to make sure that you don't have meaningless action. Meaningless action doesn't sell the script. It doesn't get the movie made. And unless you're the director or the producer, probably you can't really get away with meaningless action. So I'd say it's a requirement. If you're trying to have meaningful action is a requirement if you are really trying to make it. And this is kind of an important point. Action scenes can have adrenaline. They can cause adrenaline, but for them to be really powerful, they also need to have that emotional connection, right? The audience needs to be emotionally engaged. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to state it a couple of times at the beginning so that everybody has that. Now, let's jump into delivering on the action conventions. So I'll take you through the action conventions here and how they relate to Top Gun. First, you need a cool action hero. And I think it's kind of interesting what they did with this. Let's say we had Maverick, who is one of the best pilots of his generation, but we left out this second part, right? His repeated insubordination has kept him from being promoted. If he was just a pilot and just a normal person, and we didn't have that, and we didn't have the authorities coming down on him, and him getting in trouble in the beginning, and being instantly dismissed as soon as Iceman is gone, those kinds of things, it's like, look how much we would have lost. So just by adding in this one part, they took this action hero, and by having him be, a pain in the ass, having him be somebody who violates the rules on a regular basis, they had him live up to his name Maverick, but they also made him cool, right? And it made the story more interesting. We had a reason to worry that he was going to get tossed out. And he did anyway, right? But he's a hotshot. He breaks the rules. He's a daredevil. Who's still in the program only because Iceman is the commander of the U.S. fleet. So, it's like we've got somebody on the edge who could at any time go out of bounds, who could cause problems at any time, who the authorities are worried about, all of that kind of thing. He's a much more exciting character to watch because of that, and there's much more drama because of that. Now, second thing, you need a demand for action. And this is important. Having action scenes that have no meaning to them, right? Or haven't been demanded. Wow, that's a real problem. It's something I used to see in all the old Kung Fu movies, the ones from 30, 40 years ago. Before Bruce Lee showed up and actually did it right. So you got to watch for that. But here we have a demand for action. This unsanctioned uranium plant that's going to be used for nukes, right? There's a 4-week, we have a 4-week timeline here, deadline, to destroy the plant before it goes live. So there is a demand for action. There is a ticking clock that has us worry even more. Then C, you need a unique villain. And usually, I'm going to say 95% of the time, that unique villain needs to be a human. In this case, they didn't really give us much of a villain other than the 5th generation fighters. It seemed like we had enough that we were up against, enough problems, the whole time. And of course, then I'd say the surface to air missiles, but that's just the way that is. In general, I would be building in something even stronger. Like if you said, well, his commander was the villain, it's like, yeah, kind of, but not really. So maybe it's because this is a franchise and we're on the second one. Maybe they can get away with it, but I'd still be trying to make a stronger and a more human villain that they have to worry about. Then you need unique action. So in this case, the action was dogfighting, right? Maverick is against the Top Gun fighters. Both of them, then later on against the 5th generation fighters. And then of course them against the SIMs or the SAMs, the surface to air missiles. You need an impossible mission. And I'm going to talk in detail about this mission, but basically they're trying to destroy this uranium plant that's in between these 2 mountains that is guarded by surface to air missiles and 5th generation fighters. So that creates something we haven't seen. And because it's impossible, the audience doesn't just sit there and go, wait a minute, I can figure this out. You know, they're engaged, they're worried, they're wondering, how are you going to do it? And then an intriguing action world. And in this case, really, it's still Top Gun. Top Gun is the action world that this whole thing is mostly about, right? It's like, it's the Navy's training ground for the most elite pilots, the best of the best. So there's lots of competition built into it. There are things that we haven't seen, you know, so it's pretty cool, I'd say. All right, now let's talk about setting up the action scenes. In general, I'm going to give you 4 things here, and then I'll give you some examples. First, anytime you have an action scene, you need to create demand for the action. And it's like, let's say what you have in your script is 5 action scenes. The only one that you may not create demand for would be the first one, right? If you have an opening and we're opening right into action. But if possible, you might still create demand for it. But every action scene after that, this is incredibly important. If we go into an action scene that the audience doesn't know what forced us into it, you've got a problem. So keep that in mind. Second thing, you need to build in meaning. And I'm going to show you how these all show up inside scenes as we go. And then you need to make it emotional so that the audience both has the meaning and they are feeling the emotions. They are worried, but going into the action scene, they know what's coming up. And then that action needs to cause a change. And this is another one of the things that I see a lot in contest scripts. They are missing this one. Actually, most of them are missing at least this one, maybe that one too. But it's right here. They'll have an action scene and nothing changed. And it's like, wait a minute, you mean we just saw this major action scene where they're going to spend $10 million just on this scene alone, and it doesn't cause a change in the story? That doesn't fit for the world. It's like anytime somebody goes through a real action scene, something has changed. They either had a purpose, they had a reason, there was something in that mission, or this was something that has caused an impact on their lives in some way, right? So it's just another one of those tips. Take a look at all of your major action scenes and just look through and see if these exist. And if going into it, there's no demand, then there's no reason for the action scene. If coming out of it, it doesn't cause a change, then that meant we just watched an action scene that did nothing. So every action scene causes some kind of change. It moves that story forward in some way. So all of these are important. Now, first thing here, the other thing you need to do is define your mission, your impossible mission. And so let me just walk you through that one, because the impossible mission is going to influence every single one of those action scenes. So in this case, there was an impossible task, right? They didn't just have to bomb the thing. They had to get to the target in under 3 minutes. And you saw, if you watched it, it's like, wow, they had 5-6 runs in a row that failed, where they didn't make it to the target in under 3 minutes. And so it's like when we get 2/3 of the way through the movie, the whole thing is based on they don't believe that the mission can even be done. And Maverick gets fired at that point. And then he goes and proves that he can do it in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And that's enough to convince people it's possible. But not only do they have to get to the target in 3 minutes, but they've got to fly below these surface-to-air missiles, right? Which create a lot of drama along the way. It creates a lot of worry moving up to it. And then when it's actually happening, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of emotions around it, a lot of worry. And then finally, the surface-to-air missiles do go off. And now we're in major action scenes that are actually pretty incredible. They need to strike a very small target and they need to hit it twice. So again, this is another part of making it impossible. Then they need to climb straight up a mountain without hitting it. And if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, they're hitting 9 to 10 Gs, which means, as they do a great job of pointing out, essentially their body is right on the edge of exploding as they're doing that. And then they need to escape the surface-to-air missiles, right? Which is, at the end creates the big dogfight. And then they've got to escape the Generation 5 fighters. So take a look at that. I'd say that's a pretty impossible mission, right? It's like it's designed, it's well written. This was all created by the writer, by the way. This wasn't created by the actors. This was created by the writer. So that's, you're coming in. Part of what you're doing as a writer is you are bringing in this kind of quality, which makes it easy for an audience to get engaged and to buy it, right? It doesn't seem implausible that we're doing all this training for nothing. If this was just a regular, bomb run, they wouldn't need all of this. They would just go do the run. So, okay, now let me give you some examples on the setting up part. For the dogfighting scenes, these were the training scenes where Maverick basically tracked each one of them and then took them out. The demand. We know that these pilots, in order to survive the mission, they must be able to dogfight, which is a skill that they're weak at. So that is established at the very beginning when, or at the very beginning of Maverick taking over. He gets up and he points out, you guys, they're great at running regular missions, but they're weak at dogfighting. Then the meaning. The students think that they're better than their instructor. And that showed up from an emotional perspective when they tossed him out of the bar last night. They don't think he has any impact on their life whatsoever. So the action that causes change, Maverick shoots them all down, convincing them that they have to improve, right? And what that does, by the way, the other thing that does is that then sets up this competition, and it has us be willing to watch them go through that same thing over and over and over again. He shoots them down again, and then he shoots them down again. And then one of them ends up, having to bail out, and their fighter goes down on that thing, right? And it's like, so each time we are going into this over and over, watching them again because they're improving, because they're getting a little better, little better, little better. At what point do they get to the point where they're better than him? Now, here's the second one, is unauthorized flight. They've gone through all their training for dogfighting, but still no one has actually made it. The Admiral fires Maverick, and it's over for him. He has no idea how to deal with it. He goes and has to talk with Penny, and she says, you'll figure it out, go do something, right? He's got to be creative. So he goes on this unauthorized flight. So the demand, he's been removed, and now he must prove that the mission can be flown, right? The Admiral's solution is to raise the flight deck, which puts them at a point where they could be attacked by the surface-to-air missiles, and it's to give him longer time. He's going to take it to 4 minutes, right? And that's enough for them to be able to retaliate. So our guy, Maverick, has to prove that this mission can be flown. The meaning, if it's possible for him, it's possible for them, right? The emotion, he's afraid for Rooster's life. And I'd say he's afraid for everybody's life, but Rooster is the guy that's been set up as the one that he is deeply connected to. He has major wounds around Rooster's father dying. He has made a promise to Rooster's mother that he will protect him. And so this is the guy he's most afraid of. And then the action that causes change, right? By proving it can be done. When he makes it in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, first, he's back in control. Second, the pilots believe it's possible, right? So this single action scene, notice all the things that are built into it that are not the action, right? This is the stuff that makes these action scenes connected, emotional, meaningful, and at the same time has them make sense. So, and then they go on the real mission. So the real mission, the demand, again, they've got to destroy the uranium enrichment plant before it becomes operational. The meaning, they're protecting the world from more nukes. The emotional on that, Maverick makes the decision to have Rooster be his wingman. And at this point, by the way, he's had this dilemma the whole time. Does he take care of Rooster by protecting him from the mission, right? Or does he send him on the mission to advance his career? And then the action that causes change, they complete the mission, but the change that occurs this time is Maverick and Rooster are shot down. So that takes us into the final act and the need for, more other forms of action. So now, how do you mix drama into the action, right? Because again, we want to give this action as much meaning as we can, because again, that's going to connect with the audience. So one place is to create relationship conflict around that action. And in this case, it's Maverick versus his superiors, right? So it's like you're looking at who are the two sides on this conflict, right? So we've got Maverick versus his superiors. They have a lot going on. The Admiral in the very beginning shut down Maverick's Mach 10 test. And then he sent him off to the Top Gun flight school. Actually, Maverick was probably going to be possibly tossed out of the Navy at that point, and Iceman stepped in for him. The Top Gun Admiral doesn't like him, and as soon as Iceman is gone, he takes the mission away from him. So Maverick is having those kinds of conflicts with his superiors all the way through this. There's also Maverick versus Rooster, right? So, and this is kind of part of what you want to be looking at when you're creating these stories. There's as much conflict around these relationships as there is around the actual action. So Maverick versus Rooster, both of them have major wounds. Maverick lost Goose, Rooster's father, and Maverick stopped Rooster's chance of entering the Naval Academy. And there's a reason why, right? He was keeping his promise to the mother. And then there's one other place that we have relationship conflicts, and that's Maverick versus Penny. Now, they did this one in kind of a light way. This could have been much more intense. Maybe they chose to make this side light because the other parts were pretty intense. But in the very beginning, when he arrives, first thing she does is she catches him doing something he's not supposed to. And she has him pay for a round of drinks for everyone. And it's like, you know, they're kind of flirting already at the beginning. They are, you know, she's clearly understands him. And it looks like they're kind of having fun, but she does this thing that you may think is like, well, yeah, it's like there's a little bit of covert tension between them. There's something there that she's paying him back for. She then has him thrown out of the bar. And of course, it's done in kind of a happy, light, friendly way, but he's still carried out of the bar and thrown out, right? You would think possibly if these two had a relationship before, it must not have ended exactly the way she wanted it to. He takes her home, but she won't let him stay. So, you know, which doesn't fit with their relationship before. And then finally, when he does end up staying the night, the daughter says to him as he's trying to escape, just don't break her heart again. So this is what these two have been living through. You know, he's never been able to have a real relationship except maybe her. And last time he broke her heart. You know, so it makes it more emotional and interesting and engaging. Let's see what else. Competition. So all of the pilots are in competition, you know, and while it's not the biggest part of this, like it was much more intense in the first one, but while it's not the biggest part of this, it does drive a lot of the dialogue and it drives their interactions with each other. It also drives their need to be the best and to outdo the other ones, you know, so that makes a difference. And then we have emotional dilemmas. And I already told you this emotional dilemma. Maverick made a promise to Rooster's mother that he would keep him out of harm's way and that he wouldn't let him go into war, basically. So does he keep that promise, or does he take him on the mission with him that could possibly end his life? Right. So this is important stuff, right? And it's, I'd say, you know, it's at least part of what's going on. It's like Rooster is angry at Maverick. What he doesn't know is that Maverick made this promise. So, you know, again, it's another part of what keeps us engaged. And then these two are both haunted by wounds, right? Maverick lost his partner Goose. This guy was his best friend. And, you know, and Maverick has always blamed it on himself. Now everything with Rooster is a reminder of this. And this, let's just pause for a second. I remember when I was watching it the first time and they brought Maverick in, they're telling him what the mission's going to be. And then they put the pictures of the eight people up there that are the potential, you know, flyers that are going to go with him. Maverick turns and looks and sees one of them. And the Admiral says, is there a problem? And Maverick says, you know, there is. And then they have this discussion. There's Rooster, who is the son of Goose, and Maverick from that very moment, instantly re-experienced his wound. And now he's worried that he's going to do the same thing to Goose's son, right? That was great writing, right? They chose to set up a wound early on in that situation so that from the moment he's going in to do his mission, he's worried about Goose or about Rooster the entire time. So, you know, these are things you want to look for. These are things you want to design into your writing. Now, the second part, of course, Rooster lost his father. And even with that, that's enough for him to have a problem with Maverick. But then Maverick pulled his papers for the Naval Academy, which means Maverick has shut down Rooster's career, and Rooster has no idea why. Again, adding these wounds, building them in, and then making them an important part of the story is part of what makes your writing great. Now, the question here, two questions. First one, what can you do to build these insights into your writing? And part of it, there may be things that you just saw that you went, yes, I need to use that, or it caused an idea, right? That's part of what these are about. My objective always is to have you guys become better as you watch any of these programs. You go through them with me. So first thing is if you already have a to-do list that came out of watching this, go apply it to your script right now. The other question is, how do you become a great action writer? And I think, if you're even close to serious about writing action scripts, you should do everything you can to learn this at a really high level. And so today, let me just spend another 5 minutes with me. Let me walk you through this upcoming program on how to write at the highest level you can, having to do with action. This is the best program I've ever seen on it. We created it with a development team of people who all had written action scripts and knew what they were doing. And so just stay with me for a minute, and then I'll give you a special at the end for those of you who'd like to join us. This program, it's a 30-day long class. It actually begins on June 19th. Its whole purpose is to make sure that first you have all of these skills down, and second, that you apply them to the screenplay you're writing right now. Very first lesson, how to create a marketable action concept. Let me tell you what this does. Here's what this comes down to. If you're thinking about trying to sell at any time, this is the key skill that you need. Do you have a marketable action concept? Do you have something that the moment you say it to a producer, they know that they can sell this movie? So that's the very first lesson, because we want you creating from that point on out of that highly marketable action concept. Second, now you want heroes and villains that can sell the roles, right? You need mavericks in here. You need something that's going to cause actors to sign on. And so you'll take a look at and redesign or design your action characters in a way that makes them easy to pitch to actors. Third, then it's about creating the engaging mission. And they did a great job of that here. It was like there was never a question in this movie as to whether or not this mission was impossible and whether it was engaging. So there's a whole series of different things that I haven't talked with you about so far that we build into our missions. You will love what that does. Fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. These four are all about building your plot and making sure it is incredibly powerful from an action genre perspective. You first figure out the mission track, then the villain track, then the action track, and then we combine them all in order to make sure that from start to finish, you have an action story that anyone who loves action will love your story. It makes a huge difference. There are too many scripts coming into this town that are dramas with action elements. And a drama with action elements is hard to sell. So it makes a difference. Number 8, why do we care? You need to build that in. And in this movie, we saw that so many different times. It was designed to have us constantly care about these characters and their journey. Number 9, now it's about twist, turns, reversals, and betrayals. And by the way, you need to be a master at every one of these. To say, oh, I know how to create a twist, but not know all the different kinds of action twist is not enough. You need to master every one of these so that anyone who reads your script is deeply engaged and they feel it. They are constantly wondering and worrying. Number 10, now it's about the action emotions. And again, what we've done on this class is we went through and we clearly defined each of the action emotions. There's a whole series of action emotions that you need. There's about 10 of them. And on each one of them, you need to know how to generate them in any scene. So like if you look at these, I say to people all the time, I'll say, hey, your story needs to be more intriguing. And they'll go, how? And the problem isn't that they're not creative. The problem is they don't even know what intrigue really means or how to create it. So if any of these action emotions, you're going to become an absolute pro at being able to create them in any situation or any scene. Then number 11, you then compile your action story map. And again, since action is kind of complex, we're going to use a map for that. 12, then what we did was we took a look at what does it take to write great action scenes? Not just pile a whole bunch of action in there, but how do you set them up so that they become more and more and more emotional? How do you design it up front so that we're deeply engaged from the beginning? How do you end it in a way that has us out of breath and immediately wondering what's going to happen next, right? There are so many amazing things you can build into your scripts that will make a difference in how producers, managers, and agents perceive you. 13, and this one, by the way, comes from one of the most often asked questions I get, which is, how do I write my description? Do I just say action scene goes here? And the answer is no, you don't do that. We're going to give you 5 ways to write really amazing description that once you learn those, you'll never have a question about it again. You will know what to do in any scene to have us experience the action as the reader. And then 14, formatting for action. And there are some ways of formatting that actually cause a reader to experience that action and cause them to want to continue reading. So we have made this incredibly easy. I'm giving you the highest level skills there are having to do with writing action screenplays. And by the time you're done, you're going to be an absolute pro. We have had people who have never written an action script in their life go through this program. And at the end of it, their action is better than the vast majority of the people who make it to the semifinals of the big screenplay contest. So this automatically can make a difference even in a newbie, somebody who's brand new at it. But if you want to become a pro, you've got everything here you need to be able to do that. Now, the normal price on this class is $249. As I said, it begins on June 19th. Let me give you a special. This is for the first 20 people that sign up. You can get in for $149. That saves you $100 on this program. Again, that is for the first 20 people that sign up. All you got to do is go to this link, and if it's not clickable, just write it down, bit.ly/SU action class. SU is in screenwriting U. So again, bit.ly/SU action class. Just write that down, put it in your browser where you normally put a web address, click return, and go through the sign-up process, and you're in. Once you've done that, then this begins. You've got like a week or so, a week and a half here to brainstorm ideas. I would just be brainstorming as many action ideas as you could. Come in the first day, you'll settle on whatever the first one is, and then you will fly through this program. And every step of the way, I promise you, you'll be learning new things. You will be growing as a writer, and you will be creating an action story that's the best script you've ever written in your life so far. That's what this program is about. And when you end up working with action producers, you will go in the door knowing what they know or more. You will understand how to do anything that they're requesting and be able to write at a pretty high level in this genre. So if any of those things are something you want, come join us, write the best action script of your life. And right now, again, for the first 20, you can get in at $149, which saves you $100. Again, just go to this link, click it, go through the process, come join us. I promise you, you will love this program. So listen, thanks for being with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. I hope you got something out of it. And I look forward to working with you in the future. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the absolute best with your writing. Bye-bye, everyone.